It's time to drive to work, and it's time for a D&D chat. Now, today, I want to talk about something that I've been seeing a lot lately. I mean, a lot. I've been seeing it in my gaming group. I've been seeing it on Critical Role forums. I've been seeing it on other Dungeons and Dragons forums. It's coming up all over the place. What am I talking about? Pathfinder 2.0. And I don't get it. I mean, I just don't get it. I really don't. Why? I guess to understand my frustration, I need to go back to my frustration with Pathfinder. Now, I think that a lot of people playing the game now don't actually understand the history and the relationship and the beginnings between D&D and Pathfinder, which is why a lot of people now that like Pathfinder seem to get offended whenever someone refers to it as a 3.5 clone. Well, I just want to be clear, whether offensive or not, Pathfinder is a 3.5 clone. I'm not saying that in a malicious way. I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm saying it in a factual way. Quite literally, what happened was, during Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, there was the D20 system license and the open game license. And Pathfinder, however you want to pronounce it, they started building and producing content for D&D 3.5. They were writing third-party books for 3.5. And then what happened was, in 2007, Dungeons & Dragons announced that they were going to be starting development on 4th edition. Now, my issues with 4th edition are for a number of other videos, some of which I've recorded and some of which I'm sure I will record in the future. But Dungeons & Dragons, as part of the lead into the new edition, began to pull back and revoke the open game licenses and the D20 license. They started to retract that availability. Now, at this time, Pathfinder was making a lot of money making new content for 3.5. Splat books, item books, whatever else. Some of the quality of this content was very good. Some of it was very questionable. But both the good and the questionable were lucrative. Pathfinder did not want to lose this. And in fact, they had 5 or 6 books in development at that time that they wouldn't be able to release because the license was being pulled. They were having their cash cow pulled out from under them by the new edition of D&D. So, looking ahead and seeing that the 4th edition game licenses was going to be a lot stricter, it was not going to allow them to do the same publishing of hundreds of different books about any topic under the D&D license. They realized that what they really needed to do was find a way to keep building books for 3.5. But they couldn't build books for 3.5 because the license was being taken away from them. So they had to instead invent a game that was not 3.5, that they did not need a Wizards of the Coast license for, but that had the exact same rules and the exact same mythos and the exact same system as 3.5. So, before... Declining a call there, sorry. Poked you in the face. Before the licenses ran out, they threw together a book that would work as a core rule book for a new system under the open game license, under the D20 system, which would basically allow them to continue writing books for the system that they were currently using without a D&D license. That is what Pathfinder was. It was a necessary thing for Paizo to keep publishing books. People say it's better than 3.5, that it does this and that and the other. You're arguing semantics. It's the same system. They changed up the wording of a few things here and there because legally they had to. They had to change that wording. Otherwise, it was just flat-out copyright infringement. Some people say, oh, well, it flows better, it's cleaner. Well, it's cleaner in that a lot of things are worded a lot more simply, but that's because they were trying to save space. They were condensing it as much as they could to save space, to throw in some other stuff that they wanted to add into the book to make it look different. It's the same system. And sure, I'll be honest, I have quite a few Paizo books. Pathfinder books. But I would never run Pathfinder. I just wouldn't. I would run 3.5, and I would allow the Pathfinder books to be used as reference material. Because it's the same game. I mean, it's the same game. So people saying that it's better just doesn't make sense. Now then, from there, moving on to Pathfinder 2.0. Everything that I'm reading so far... Now, obviously, I haven't read the book. It's not out yet. But everything that I am reading so far gives me the impression that basically, now that there's an SRD back for 5e, and now that they've gone back to kind of a more traditional stance with D&D, it sounds like now we're going to get a 5e clone. And why do we need a 5e clone when we have 5e? Now, again, 5e is not my favorite in a lot of ways. I have a lot of issues with 5e. My players like 5e, so I run 5e. I modify it as much as I can to make it more like 3.5, but I call it 5e, and that makes my players happy. But I don't know why we need a 5e clone. I just don't. I mean, can anybody in the comments tell me why we need a 5e clone? We need more 5e content. I agree with that. You know, if they were getting some kind of a deal to publish content for 5e, I'd be fine with that. Some new classes or new archetypes or, settings, magic items. That's what I used to love about Paisio is the massive books of magic items and things. I liked that. I wish they'd start just doing that again. I liked Paisio when they were doing that, not when they had to try to cause all these problems because, yeah. So, there we are. Pathfinder 2e. Or 5e Xeroxed and with the names changed. That's what I expect at least. Maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe they'll